Hey everyone, this is video 2 for Unit 3, Lesson 2, Factoring Trinomials when the coefficient in front of x squared is 1. We're going to start with number 4 since that's where I left off in the last video. Once again, this is in your note pack for Unit 3. Alright, what I neglected to say and check in the first video was factoring out GCFs. The first 3 did not have any GCFs. In this set of problems, we will have a GCF that we have to factor out. So you did GCFs in lesson 1. Okay, and the first 3, I just wanted you to concentrate on the actual process for trinomials. So from here on out, the first thing we're going to do is check for a GCF. And then the second thing we're going to do is make sure that x squared, the term, x squared term, is positive. Okay, so the first thing you do is make sure nothing will pull out. So if I have the numbers 1, 10, and 24, there's not a number that goes into all of those except 1, which will not change anything. And then the x's, I have an x squared, an x, and nothing. So I cannot pull out any x's because they're not common in all of them. So now we know that this is going to factor into a binomial, 2 binomials because it's a trinomial. So how do I get x squared? Well, x squared comes from x times x. To get 24, I have a couple of options. I have 1 and 24. I have 2 and 12. I could have 3 and 8. And 4 and 6. So as we said in the first 3 examples, if this is a positive 24, then I either have to have 2 pluses or I have to have the same combination and they both can be subtraction. So whatever I put here has to be these numbers, and depending on what is here will determine if it's right or wrong. So if I pick 24, I want to have 1 and 24 here. Once again, you always check your first and last terms first. So x times x would give me x squared, and 1 times 24 would give me positive 24. So I'm good with this piece and this piece. So now I have to check the outer and inner terms. So x times 24 would give me positive 24x, and 1 times x would give me plus x. So this piece would go to 25x, which is not what I need. So one could argue that I would have to check this one, but if you remember that if I change the signs of both of these, the only thing that will change here is the sign of that. So instead of positive 25x, I would get negative 25x, which is not what I need, because I've already set these signs up to work. So negative 1 times negative 24 would be 24. X times x would be x squared. So this combination is not the right combination of numbers. So I'd have to go back and check something else. So can we eliminate things, or can we look at our list and kind of determine which ones to use? Well, we know that I have to get a 10x. So this piece times this piece and this piece times this piece added together would have to give me 10x. So try to do that in your head. If you put 2 and 12 in here, we're going to have x times 12 and 2 times x. That would be 14. That's not what I need. So I would go ahead and try 4 and 6 because that looks like it could be 10. That's terrible 6. Let me rewrite that. That's better. So x times x, of course, works because we made it work to begin with, and positive 4 times positive 6 worked because I had the signs correct and it was an answer over here. So x times 6 would be 6x, and 4 times x would be 4x. 6x plus 4x would be 10x. And that is the correct answer. So x plus 4 times x plus 6 would be the factored answer. So to start with number 5, the first thing we're going to check once again is GCFs. If you look at your numbers, 1, 2, -2, and -15, there's not a number except 1 that will pull out of those. So I'm not going to pull a 1 because that wouldn't change anything. As far as your x's, there's not an x on the -15, so I can't pull an x out. Alright, so I'm going to write my 2 sets of parentheses because that's what this will factor into. To get this x squared, I would have to have an x and an x. And then to get the 15, I would have to have something here and here. So notice this is a -15. On 1 through 4, we had positive 15, or positive numbers here. So this one changed a little bit. It's negative. Doesn't change the process. So what does that mean? Well, to be a negative, these numbers would have to, one would have to be positive and one would have to be negative. So if I think about 15, the combinations that I could have would be 1 and 15. Of course, one of those would have to be negative, and 3 and 5. And one of those would have to be negative. So let's try a 1 and 15. So if I put 1 and 15 there, and I put a positive and a negative, first thing, you check your first term. X times x would give me x squared. And 1 times -15 would give me -15. So I would be good with the first and the second, or the first and the last terms. Now see if you get -2x. So this piece times this piece would be -15x. And this piece times this piece would be positive x. So this going together would be -14x. That's not what I need. I need -2x. So you might argue that what if I'd have wrote 1 minus, or x minus 1, and then x plus 15? Check those numbers. X times x would give me x squared. -1 times a positive 15 would give me -15. So what I did was I changed my signs, which is okay because it gave me -15. So now check your outer and inner. So x times a 15x would be 15x. Or x times 15 would be 15x. -1 times x would be -x. So this would go to 14x, which is not what I need. I need -2x. Now to go back to something I said already, if I change both of my signs, which I did, I changed the 1 to negative and the 15 to positive. If I change both my signs, the only thing that changes between these two things is going to be my sign. So eventually, if you check this one and you see it doesn't work, you know that if I change my signs, it's not going to work. So I have to try the next thing. So let's try 3 and 5. So two binomials, x and x to get x squared, and then -15, I'm going to do 3 and 5. Now look at the problem. I know I'm going to have to put a positive and a negative here. To check my terms, x here, and then if I put a negative here and a positive here, I'd get -15. So I just got to put opposite signs here. But this outer and inner has to add to be -2x. So what happens if I put plus there and negative there? So once again, +5 times -3 would be -15. Let's check the outer and the inner. X times -3 would be -3x. And 5 times x would be +5x. This would give me a +2x in the middle, which I need a -2x. So it's the right number, but the wrong sign. So how do I fix that? Switch my signs. So instead of x plus 5, it would be x minus 5. Instead of x minus 3, it would be x plus 3. Double check that. X times x would be x squared. -5 times 3 would be -15. I do this out of order because if those two pieces don't work, then the middle terms will not work. So x times 3 would be 3x, and -5 times x would be -5x. Now it's -2x, which it did exactly what we thought it would. It changed the sign of the number because I just changed the sign of my factors. So x minus 5 times x plus 3 would be the factors of number 5.